banger in the driveway. One of us will maybe wear a toupee, but I will be in love with you.
Unmute yourself and sing with me. Ooh, still possible. Welcome back, everybody. How are we doing? Show it with your energy in the screen. I love it. All right, there's a brand new day, a brand new lesson. And today we're going to talk about how you can create your awesome full talk by watching one of yous. And obviously I really build up the tension of what video we're gonna watch. I obviously did not talk about that 300 times yesterday. So I know that you're all so curious. What is going to happen today? Well, I'm gonna spill the beans. We're gonna watch Richie's full talk and we're gonna learn about it together. And how we're gonna do that is I'm going to share my screen in a minute. We're going to watch specific clips. I'm gonna pause it and then you're all gonna watch it. And every single one of you has their own lens of looking through. Because next week, and maybe some of you heard it yesterday when I said that, maybe some of you were still joining when I previewed a little bit on week 7, because in week 7 you are going to do your full talk in front of this group. And the reason for that is in week 8 you've already done it once. So you have kind of like the gentle nudge to create something, and that can be so perfectly imperfect. Because before we're going to watch it, is it okay if I just share like a fun surprise? Because Jamie yesterday shared, Lori, I got a lot of insights in when we jumped on a call together. For every single body here, we're going to jump on a one-on-one call where you can ask anything you want. So I'm going to share a link later, like after this lesson in the WhatsApp group, so you can book a call with me. And that can either be before week 7. So you feel like, okay, Lori, can we just brainstorm a little bit about what this could be? And then you feel that you're ready for week 7. And then based on the feedback that you will get from your peers and from me in the lesson in week 7, you feel ready for week 8. Or you can choose to do week 7 based on what you already think, and then based on what you all learn, together with me brainstorm about what that full talk could be all the way in week 8, so you feel congruent with all of it. And just for the sake of reminding the most important part of this, it's what is most important, progress or perfection? I know that was a hard one, huh? Who said perfection? Jamie. JB just said, Lori, perfection is progress. You got it, Jamie. 20 points for you and everybody else. Yeah, that's important. So in week 8, you're going to have the first best draft that you've ever done. Okay? And then the week after, you have the best next draft. And so it keeps continuing, and so you keep learning, and so you keep adapting to the skill. But what I've learned over the years of helping people is that it's great to upgrade, but when you never create a video and you're like, this was some sort of end product in some moment, it always keeps kind of like flowing and you never really create something. So that's why we're doing that. So you all get the link from me, so you can book that call. Who's excited of that? Who's excited to not freak out alone? We can freak out together. Oh.
I have
So
a question. Do I get another one, or did I already have mine? I mean, I know I already had one, but
well,
I don't need another one.
okay, well, you are going to get your talk on Friday, and I told you I've got your back. So if you feel that you need some last minute support, I'm here for you. So is all of
Thank you.
Okay. So, today we're going to focus on the next level of a talk. And what I want to do is everybody is going to look through a certain lens. Now, when you're thinking about your week 8 momentum for yourself, what is the one thing that you feel you need most growth in until then? Like, what is the one thing that you feel, oh, that's an element of growth? when we look through the lenses, when we look through the lens of the structure, when we look through the lens of storytelling, when we look through the lens of picking the right stories, we're looking through the lens of transitions, the lens of the hook, the lens of the call to action. What is the one lens that you feel you want more growth in? You can put it in the chat. Like, which lens is it? Is it the lens of specificity versus broad? Is this the lens of dialogue? What lens do you feel you want to go next level on? Picking the right story. Okay, Jessica, what else? What do you got? Details. Would you like to clarify that in the chat, Jamie? What exactly do you mean by details? Is it the specificity versus broad lens? Gotcha. The story details, right? So not saying health, but Greek salad with olive oil or something. Richie thinks, you know what, if I can just put one, I put a lot in one message. I love that. The transition, the dialogue, and staying on time. Okay, great one. And Nilsa, what would it be for you? What is the one lens that you feel like you want to upgrade?
Picking the right story with the right message. The story with the message, so it connects.
Yes. So a little bit the same, like which story? Which story am I going to pick? Okay, gotcha. So basically you're all agreeing with everybody. So everybody wants to learn everything, which is great. That's why you're here. So what I would love for you to do, and that's the reason why I ask this, because when we go through an exercise, it's great. When you go through an exercise with intention, it's even better. So what is the one thing that you would love to grow more into? So when you're listening to someone else's talk, really focus on looking at, okay, how is that person doing it? One, just like we did yesterday, freaking amazingly. What are the steps that they're taking that are actually incredible? And then if there would be one area of growth specifically that now the other person is kind of mirroring back to me, because that's in the end what stories do. That's in the end what examples do. It just mirrors back what you're seeing, what you want to grow into. What would that one thing be? So Jessica, when you're thinking about picking the right story, especially with the question that Jamie asked, which was a great question, like how many stories do I pick? And I explained the difference between a through line, a storyline, which from Richie will be very, very clear. It will be a kidnapped story. If I would go through his story library, I would probably see something around kidnap. Then, if we look closer, which is what we're going to do, you will see that there will be different stories in that storyline that he picked. So what stories did he pick? You can look through that, Jessica. What stories do you hear? Like if you would make a story library out of just this talk, what chapters will you have? And do you think they feel congruent? Did you feel that you were like zoning in? And this would be a fun one for you, Jessica, is do you feel that you learned something about Richie's character from his credibility and his community? So picking the right stories, like how did he do it? And if you would put your filters on it, because sometimes it's easier to watch someone else's example, right? Because then it's quote unquote so obvious, but when it's for yourself, it gets a little dusty, which is totally normal. So now you practice the skill that you want to learn for yourself through watching someone else's. For you, the same, Jamie. What specificities do you hear? Or do you hear some vagueness and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm focusing on the specificity lens. Could this be also more specific? Huh.
Can I just share really quick this morning? I was practicing my talk and talking about my story that I figured out yesterday. And I actually dropped into that and I started to recall more details of the story.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Well done. Thank you for sharing that. And that's what we talked about before. Remember the practice where I think it was you, Richie, where I said, now I want you to have a lens of dialogue. And then everybody was like, whoa, this was so much more engaging. Your tone of voice changed, all of these. And then I asked you, did you do that consciously? And the answer was no, right? When you really drop into a story, it becomes so much more obvious than you're just doing that. It becomes more natural. So, Jessica, the feedback that you gave Jamie yesterday was just spot on. You totally got it. When you drop into your heart, you totally got it. Because in that space, it's obvious to come up with such amazing things. It's obvious to talk in dialogue. It's obvious to do all of this. We come from a certain energy, we come from a certain focus, we come from a certain belief. So, that would be a fun one for you to look at this time as well, Jamie. It's like, what are the specificities that you're hearing? And do you feel more drawn into the story? And where do you potentially hear some vagueness? And do you think, maybe this could even be more specific? And then for Richie, I'm going to summarize yours for now, is what if you could focus on, okay, what of all of this is necessary for the aim? And which are more important to understand the storyline and could potentially not be using into this specific keynote because there's an aim to catch, and the aim is not how can we understand Richie's story in as chronologically perfect as possible. So what is the difference? And that is a hard task, especially it's your own story. So that's why you're in the group and we got your back as well. So Nilsa, for you, it's the connection to the stories and the teaching points. So what I would say is, why don't you look through the lens, okay, how is Richie going through the teaching points and what are you specifically learning into this story and how is he using the story to build to those teachings? Cool? What I love to do with your permission is to share this video. I'm going to pause it because otherwise we're just watching the whole time. I put it on 1.5 speed, so we'll go through it a little faster. And then if we don't finish the whole talk, that's not the goal. The goal is not to finish watching. The goal is using this talk to learn. So do we have each other's permission to not go through it completely, but just make sure that it's within the next 45 minutes and we're all learning from this experience? Because that's the goal. I'll put it on 1.5 speed if it's too fast, because my brain goes like rapid fire all the time. So for me, it's perfect. But if it's annoying you, please let me know and then I'll put it a little slower pace. Cool? Is for everybody, is it super clear what the exercise is for yourself and how you're going to learn? Yeah? Perfect. Then let's watch it. Well, and before I literally share my screen, can we have a big round of applause for Richie? Because this is freaking vulnerable. What he's going to be willing to share is incredible. And I think it's going to open a lot of, I can be this person for all of you too. It's incredible, Richie. Incredible. Thumbs up if you see the screen. Perfect. Let's go.
Happened. See, at that time, I was 19 years old, a senior in high school. That specific day, I slept at my girlfriend's house. As I wake up, 6:30, get myself ready, jump in my car, I drive to school. First thing I...
Oh, sorry.
May 3rd, 2001. The unimaginable happened.
It sounds kind of low
See,
for me.
At that time, I was
Can you
19
hear the
years old, a senior in high school. That specific day, I
It
slept
is
at
a little quiet.
Quite low. Let me
my girlfriend's house.
see if I can optimize it somehow.
It sounds like you can hear him from a tunnel. It's low.
Wake up, 6:30.
That's a little better.
That was better?
I thought that sounded a little better, but we don't see anything.
I do. I can. Okay, I'll share it again. If the sound doesn't work, I'm gonna just share the sound because Richie is just sitting. Because it's more important that you hear it than that you see it. One more time.
30, get myself ready, jump in my car, I drive to school. First thing I do is pick up the phone and call my mother.
Do you guys rather have the video and the sound or just the sound?
I like
Video-
both.
I like
Video-
both.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna do it like this.
And just a quick question, is this starting from the very beginning? Because it almost sounds like we're catching the middle of a story.
It is the beginning. Yeah.
May 3rd, 2001. The unimaginable happened. See, at that time, I was 19 years old, a senior in high school. That specific day, I slept at my girlfriend's house. As I wake up, 6:30, get myself ready, jump in my car, I drive to school. First thing I do is pick up the phone and call my mother. There was a running joke in the house that we were gonna win the lottery. It was like a Mega Millions, $600-700 million. So I called my mother to tell her that we had won the lottery. She didn't pick up the phone. That was a joke. We did not win the lottery. Go to school, went about my morning, right? Thinking everything is okay. As I sit in my chair, first period, Mr. Eisenberg's class, art, I get a phone call. It was my sister. And that call, she was frantic. Richie, come, Richie, come. I knew something was wrong. I knew it in my core that the worst thing possible that could happen had just happened. And I run out of class, my teacher screaming at me, Richie, get back over here. Kept running. Ran straight to my car, got in my car, and drove as fast as I could to my house. When I get to my house, I see my living maid, nanny that lived with us. I see my mother's sister, my aunt. I see one of my dad's cousins, and I see my sister. And immediately, I run to my sister and I hug as tight as I can, and she's like, Richie, they took mom and dad. They took mom and dad. My mother and father had just been kidnapped. It was maybe 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. My initial thought was, let's call the police. Let's call the police. Within 15 minutes of me saying, let's call the police, talking to my aunt, let's call the police, we get a phone call. And it was my mother on that phone. And she said, don't call the police. Your father is handling this. Whatever you do not call the police. Yet something inside of me kept saying to call the police. An hour passed by, we get another phone call from the kidnappers telling us that they're watching us, not to leave the house, for us to stay there, that this will be over soon. Then another phone call, my mother, again, an hour or so later, don't call the police. One of my father's friends gets to the house, and it was just chaotic that day. It was surreal, crazy, real fear for my own safety, for my parents, were they coming back, were they not? And I just kept telling all the adults, let's call the police. Yet about 12 hours after me getting to my house around 8:15, 8:30 in the morning, my mother shows up to my grandmother and my aunt's house with a van full of 6, 8 men maybe. And during that day, my father had given instructions and said, hey, they're gonna go get money at this house, give them what's outside, 2 safes. My mother went into that house, broke down the kitchen, broke down the walls, there were safes everywhere. She gave up all the money that was in that house. When she did that, the people that had her said, you can stay here, and when we release your husband, we will let you know. And the story that was told to me, a 19-year-old boy, from my aunt and my grandmother, was that my mother looked at those men in the face and said, you promised me that if I gave you everything, you would let us go together. So please take me back to my husband and release us together. And if you're going to kill us, then kill me next to him. Yeah, as a 19-year-old boy, hearing that message for the first time, what it did to me, the stories that it ran in my head, the beliefs that I created. See, that day, May 3rd, 2001, was the last day I heard my mother's voice, I heard my father's voice. They were ripped out of my life, never seen again. And I have been carrying that pain with me for 23 years. 23 years carrying a pain with me. 23 years being scared to make the wrong move, to make the wrong decision, go in the wrong direction, living in fear. Because that day, a handful of days after, one man that was close to my father told me, Richie, you now have to become a man. And with the little money you have, you better do something with it. Because if not, you won't have anything. And you will end up in the streets by yourself with no one. And now at 19-year-old,
A little pause from watching. I would love to hear, first of all, Richie, how it is for you to see this for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's my story, right? I think it's good. I think maybe I go a little bit too much into detail. Like I take too long to get into, like right there where you paused it is where I'm about to get into the part of like what the talk is about, right? So maybe I'm taking a bit too long into that. Yeah, but overall, I think as far as like painting a picture, I think I did a good job at that. Maybe I went a little bit too much into detail. But I feel like
How is it besides the specificities to look at yourself and sharing from the heart, like in such like just with a raise of hands, do we feel this man's heart? Like is it bigger than this whole video, than this whole screen, than this whole 8 weeks together? Right? What you're doing is so powerful, Richie. So powerful. And I really want to honor you for just be willing to share all of that. And I have no idea what it must feel for you now and how this affected your life. You will bring more of that story into it. But I just want to honor you for now. And I would love to hear what the reactions are from the people who watched it too. Like, what is it that comes up for you? Because in the end, this is a transformational story where you share your story and bring other people on an emotional journey. So what came up for everybody from an emotional type of view? We're not yet looking at positivity. Jessica.
I felt that right off the start, the details, it does bring you into, okay, this has got to be some story. And in the beginning, when you played it, that part where he said the date was cut off. So that's why it didn't make sense at first. But when he starts to share the details of the story, it really does capture your heart to almost like step into that emotional experience. Because, when he's talking about his mother and his father and being 19 years old and then sharing those specific details, I don't know, that I'm curious of what your answer is towards his question of specifics, because I feel that sometimes I want to know those specifics. I think it just really captures you and brings you in more into the story, and it really puts you into the heart of like, feeling what he's feeling. So, I mean, to me, I felt I was engaged. The first thought to me is, oh no, we're not going to watch this whole thing. I want to hear, like, where does it go from here? Yeah, definitely a powerful story, and great to just be vulnerable and sharing those details.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. And who felt that too? They were so drawn in that at some point it's like, oh, paused, what? Oh, I was totally captivated. Just with a raise of hands, like who was completely in the story? This is beautiful. So this video, by the way, and this is for all of you, you all have access to the folder. You can go over and over and watch this thing and see what is he doing, because he doesn't ask who here feels this too. Right? He has his own way of engaging. And in this way, it's being super present and emotional yourself. Like really be into the story and say the story in the now. So people are in the now as well. Right? So that's, Richie, what you're doing incredibly amazing. And before I'm answering the question, I would love to hear from Nilsa and Jamie, and then I will give my insight about like how you all can learn from, okay, how can you open, how can you start, and when do you feel that it's too much or not too much? Because Jessica, from your point of view as a listener, you're like, I was totally into it, right? So that's those are clues you want to look for. Jamie, what did you notice? What came up for you?
I mean, yeah, I see the scene in my mind as he's sharing it. Honestly, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, it's a little hard to dissect the talk because it is such a like, holy shit, like thing that I was more like in shock listening to the story. But the detail and the like, if I had to say if you could improve anything, it would be like the dialogue between your mom and the kidnappers and like different dialogue. That was the only thing that I
And what I'm
thought.
hearing, Jamie, and this is the beauty of all of this, right? Because sometimes when it's hard to dissect, it's really well done. You remember the transitions when I said, who knows what transition that was used? And then you were like, I don't know. That was when it was really, really well done. Now, what were the scenes or what were the lenses to start with a great hook? It's when it captivates from the beginning, it's in line with the aim, and people are there immediately, right? So these rules, these lenses that you're learning, that's the science, but you're using the art to create it. And that's what you're seeing. So now we're dissecting it through all the lenses so you see how it's applied. So you see that you can create engagement without using the hook here also, right? You see that the hook that Richie uses is so well done that even Jessica thinks like, did we start yet? Yes or no? Now, the best talks are the ones who start while you're not thinking they already started. You're like, oh, are they? Oh, we're already in. Okay, and then you're already in. You're drawn into it. You're into the story. I'm also hearing I didn't want it to end, and we're 6.5 minutes in. That's really, really well done, right? You're brought to the scene. You're brought to the moment. There's specific dialogues, so that is really well done. Nilsa, what came up for you?
I thought the story was very powerful, that he's a very courageous to bring this story to life for us. That I see that from the beginning of the story when he starts talking about that, and I feel his pain for losing his parents, that we're seeing the hero's journey from the beginning, because his uncertainty in life at the age of 19 is going to take him on a path to self-discovery, growth, and transformation. And I can't wait to see where this leads us.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And for all of you, when people are listening to your talk and ask, did it start or not? Or, oh, I want to know more. I cannot wait what's next. We can analyze the crap out of the content. And is there enough data? And, like, is the credibility piece perfect? We can talk about all of those, but in the end result, the aim that we're after is that we're captivating people and teaching them something. So what we're going to look through now, and this is, Richie, what you and I talked from all the way in the beginning, is what is your aim, right? You have multiple aims. You have the aim of inspiring people and young people to just do what they love. And then on the other side, you also have the sales groups that you want to get to and help them buy sales packages. Would you like to add something to that? I see you're nodding your head. Like, what is the aim that you feel currently you want to use this keynote for? Because that determines the insight that I'm going to give.
Yeah, when I was doing this, I think my aim is, well, I kind of get to it in the speech, is like, to personal growth, right? Like to heal people. That's the aim, right? How I've been able to heal myself, and right, that's what I get to at the end. So yeah, that's the aim, right? Like to reconnect people back to their hearts. That's it. If we drop out of here, let go of fear, and come back to here, then I did what I wanted to do.
Yeah, beautiful. And it depends, and this is why I'm asking what kind of audience it is, how you can maneuver yourself through the whole talk. So let's just, for the sake of the example, say, Richie, that this keynote in front of a big conference with all kind of sales representatives, because Richie has an offer that can help sales people sell more deals. So now it's in line with a strategy of, okay, I want to heal people, and specifically the people who help heart-centered coaches to sell more stuff. So, for example, to tie back to the through line of the talk, you can even say after 6.5 minutes something along the lines of, you might be wondering, why are you listening to this? This is important for every salesperson. Then you keep going back to this through line. So it's sometimes just a one sentence that can help people go back through the aim, and then you keep going back. So sometimes it can be just like a little mind wandering. You might be wondering, what is this kidnap story to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you. And then you keep going. You don't even have to reveal what it is, but you tell them, I know what you're thinking, but you're still on the right course, still keep paying attention. I'm still the leader here on stage, bringing you on a journey from where I know you are to where I want you to go, because I've done the research. Does that make sense? All right, let's keep watching and see how this piece, because I completely agree with everything they said. I think this, I mean, if we look, and that's why sometimes the emotional and the logical are very far from each other, and sometimes they're very close. On an emotional level, everything that has been said is captivating. And I think, and that's Richie, I think one of your main gifts is you can be captivating for 3 hours. You will be talking for 3 hours with high energy, and people will be like, whoa. At the same time, sometimes you don't get a slot of 3 hours as a keynote. So how can you create this transformation in, for example, 15 minutes? What I could say, and this is interesting for us to go through in our one-on-one, and you can also go through this by yourself, is how can you make this a little shorter, not by getting out specific information in the moment, but making the scene a little shorter. So maybe you know, you have a call, you have the parents, your sister is there, you know, there's all different parts. Like, what is one scene where you can say the same point, where you can time travel from in that moment? Maybe you start in the house, I'm here because my sister called. You go back there, you go here, and then you go forward. So then it's one specific scene. The time can be a little shorter, but the essence can stay intact. Is it clear what I mean with that? So there's less time in the storyline, right? So for example, if I would use an example out of history, it's not like for 1950s to the 2000s. It's the 1970 who explain in one moment what happened in that whole time frame. So instead of bringing from one place to another, you bring them to one scene, you explain what happened, and then you continue. So you still reach the aim of that specific part with less amount of time, with less amount of data, but then you can go deep into the dialogue from in that moment, so you can really deepen that out. Cool? All right, let's keep watching.
I adopted a belief based out of fear. And the next 20 years of my life, I make decisions and I take action, but my come from is from a place of fear, from a place of scarcity. Let me ask you, how many people in this room, raise your hand, have been holding on to pain for far too long? How many people in this room have been scared to make a decision? Let me see your hands go up. How many people in this room have let fear cloud you and make a decision out of fear? Shit, I could relate to every single one of you, because that was literally me. I was scared. After that happened with my parents, I was scared. And the truth is that I held on to the pain. And I held on to the pain because there was a part of me that was scared to lose a memory of my parents. And instead of choosing a different memory, instead of choosing a memory of love, instead of choosing all the times that we traveled as a family while I was competing in martial arts, all the times as a child that my dad built me up, and taught me so many valuable lessons. Instead of choosing those memories to hold on to, I chose to hold on to the pain. Because in my mind, if I didn't hold on to that day, I could figure out who their voice was. I might forget them. And that was so scary to me. So painful that I didn't want to let go of it. I didn't want to let go of it. And I held on so fucking tight. So tight. Yet, 23 years later, that pain that I've held on to has caused so much pain to me. To me, it's caused pain. Because the truth is, I haven't been operating from the space of love. From my heart. I haven't been true to me. Because for 23 years, I've been replaying that movie in my head. I've been beating myself up, saying I should have called the police. I should have saved their lives. I internalized it and made it about me. When in reality, this event had nothing to do with me. It was choices my father made in his life that led him and my mother down this path. And ultimately cost them their lives. Yet I was so scared to lose them. I was so scared to live life without them. I was so scared to make the wrong decision, to take the wrong action, to move in the wrong direction, to lose the little money that I had, that I held on to the pain, that I made decisions out of fear. And when you get really, really true with yourself, and you bring all those beliefs up to the conscious level, and you start seeing like what's really driving me, for me, what was driving me was that fear that my father's friend instilled in me at 19 years old and told me, hey, if you don't do something with this money, you're gonna lose it. But what, 20 years old, I start doing stuff. And I go and I build a house. I get into real estate. I trust a person. I go and I build a house with them. And I get screwed out of the deal. I lose $500,000. And then I go to my karate teacher because I thought that was the only skill I knew. That's the one thing that I'd done, for 15 years of my life, martial arts. I knew that very, very well. And I competed at the highest levels. Junior Olympic champion, state champion, international champion, all that. So I was like, let me go in that direction. Let's open up schools. Let's do this. Let me partner with someone who was a mentor, who was a teacher, who guided me, who taught me so much at a young age. Another person betrays me and steals from me. And then the last betrayal, my cousin, who had experienced the same thing with her husband, which is my cousin that was also kidnapped years prior, before my parents, when my father had gone to prison, he was taken from us. Well, I move in with her and she's, kind of nurturing me those first couple years, and I thought she was loving me and kind of being like a big sister, but the reality was that the little money that I had, her and this other person were in cahoots to take it from me, and they ended up stealing a couple $1 million from me. So when it was all said and done, within those first year and a half, after the kidnapping, I lost $4 or $5 million, something like that.
Richie, what comes up for you? When you watch this part, what do you hear?
I mean, it's emotional, right? Like, yeah, just replaying my life backwards. It's obviously emotional. I think on a logical, I think I do a well job saying the story. So fucking kudos to me because I never pat myself on the back. um, as I'm saying the story, I think that I tie the logical part of it, like, okay, now we're getting to a part of the talk of like, okay, like, who here experiences pain and has been carrying that shit for too long? Who's scared to make decisions? Who's made decisions out of fear? Like, and then I tell you, well, this is what's happened to me. And I carried that shit for so long and I was in such a fearful state. And look, this is how it happened to me. This is how I lost. So I think that painting that picture, I did a good job at that.
Yeah, and
I'm keeping my vulnerability. Like I'm being vulnerable. I'm being, I'm speaking from my heart.
Yeah. And let's take a pause here and focus on the patting on the back. Because man, like who gets just inspired? Like we can talk about credibility, connection, character. Who feels like a 20 out of 10 connected to Richie as a person? And sees him, and this is going to be an insight as well. Who feels as he's more than credible of what anything he's going to offer? Why? Jessica, I see you're like nodding like crazy. Why is that?
Well, because it's such a, it's definitely a painful story. So, like Nilsa had mentioned, it takes such courage to be vulnerable and share such details. Because you're essentially, even mentally, I mean, you're reliving that story again. And to have the courage to share this, and then, obviously there's gonna be a call to action there. It just shows where your heart is, that this isn't, like you really want, you were able to find the gift of this experience and you want to share it with other people. And so I think that it's great the way he's kind of going into the details of it. Um, I think it's important to have that. I don't know. I felt that the specifics and the details and really getting clear on the pain and of the situations really hits it's got to hit home for everybody at some point in their life where they can say, I know what that feels like. There's always been a moment in life where you felt that type of pain. Maybe it's not the same exact story, but they're similar. So it can easily connect with anybody. I think anybody that wouldn't connect with it is really living in a place of fear. But it sounds to me like you're going to pitch a solution, a gift that you were able to recognize from this experience. And I think it brings that enlightenment of, how could this help me? At least that's what I got from it.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And what I'm hearing through that is you feel, okay, Richie, he is a beautiful guy. Like I'm captivated, I'm leaning in. I feel so much rapport with this guy. I feel so much like synergy and connection and presence. And there's a lot in this story. And then I'm hearing you say, okay, so what can I learn from this? Right? Like what is the gift that I can take out of all of this? And I'm not an expert in the healing part. I'm learning a lot about it by seeing so many stories. What I can say is that what I've seen from past public speaking graduates is when they are willing to speak out their story over and over and over again, they're able to give it a different place and they connected with a different emotion. So sometimes just speaking out the whole story can be so healing. And again, I'm not the expert in it, but what I've seen over and over and over again is that when it's hard to pick stories, it can be so helpful to just riff it all out, to create a keynote that's totally chronological. Because then for you it gets space. For you're able to see it. And when it's talked out, you can look through it from a different emotion and through a different lens. Okay, what is the scene that is going to deliver the most transformation for others in this keynote? Because when I look at this from a keynote lens, like I have the Lori emotional connection human lens and the keynote strategy science part lens. And from an emotional connective level, I'm just as everybody, and I just want to verify is completely true, completely engaged. Like completely leaned in, completely like, holy F. This is a story I will never forget. This is an emotional state I will not forget. I'm truly in a different vibe right now. If this is a conference, when people went to the toilet when it started and come back, they're like, oh my God, I truly missed something. I'm going to sit down in quietness because nobody pays attention to me right now. Nobody will even hear the door. They're all centered on the beginning. Now the transformation lies in, okay, how is this emotion going to transform to a place where other people are taking notes for themselves and at the end have a thought, oh my God, I learned so much for myself around this talk. Instead of this speaker was so engaging, so incredible. And from the other one, I learned a lot. How can you do both? Right? A suggestion around that is, and that's why I paused it around 6.5 minutes, because I truly think that was a scene that was so important and very useful to take quite some time. And what I'm hearing now, for example, with the aim of, okay, this is for salespeople, and this is where you want to have the 3 steps that get you from where they are to where they want to go. You can even use the kidnap story in a ways like, where are you kidnapped right now? Are you kidnapped in your own calendar? Are you kidnapped in your... So now you start to use it as a through line. And then in that whole chronological story, you're going to see, okay, what specific scene is really important? Because now we go through a 20 years of experience. This happened and this happened and this happened. And again, the lens of Lori, the emotional connective human being, feels totally interested in all the parts. Lori, as audience member who wants to take notes for herself, is now thinking, okay, what specific thing can I draw here on my notepad? So what, for example, if we look through the now and the new, are the 3 steps that you can teach something, which I've heard. I noted a lot of things down. It could be, for example, are you acting from fear or faith? Or what is the memory of a certain event? What is it that you're focusing on? Or are you beating yourself up? Or are you patting yourself on the back of what you've already done? And so when you listen through this story, there's a lot of teaching points. There's a lot of teaching points. So what I would say is, when you listen through this, what are the 3 main teaching points for you, Richie? You don't need to answer them now, but to think for yourself, what are the 3 main teaching points that you want to mention in this story? Basically, at the end, when you're giving your video to someone who doesn't know you, and you say, what are the 3 key takeaways that you've learned through this? Then most probably it will be these 3. Obviously, you can never control the outcome in someone else's brain. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you want to have a complete through line of, like, what are the 3 steps to bring people from where they are to where they want to go? And what you can choose then is what specific scenes of the story fit with each teaching point. So for example, maybe there's a specific moment where you focus on the memory, right? So the 3 things that I'm now going to share that make sense for you as a salesperson are these: 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to dissect what specific scenes of that story are going to drive home the message. It's a lot of words. Does that radiate? So now the question remains, okay, what specific parts of the story are necessary for me to get my aim across? And again, just to sum it up before we continue watching a little piece, is sometimes it does really, really help to put it all out, and then from there, take a look, and not brainstorm and think, okay, what perfect scenarios am I creating right now? I showed you, I believe, my talk of the Stonehenge story. Does it ring a bell for everybody? The Stonehenge story? No, I did not. I will share it with you. That's a talk that I did, so you have another example just like Duncan's. And I was thinking about it this week, especially, Jamie, because you asked the question, what stories do I pick? And I explain it through the through line. When you see that talk, you might think, oh, she sat down and she created this whole script and she's so good in this. Monica knows that's totally the opposite. Totally the opposite. This was like 30 iterations. Every time's doing it out loud, thinking, no, this is too much, this is too little, this is too far. No, totally change it. And what happened over the time of a week is that I did not have any story that I used from the beginning all the way at the end result, but that process was necessary to create all of this. So when you look at a storyline in a through line and you think, wow, it's so well done, it seems so easy because there are not so many different pieces, and you're sitting down and you're coming up with your perfect version. You can sit down for such a long time. So the end result is creating your video, get 3 new action steps of the recording of the next one, and just commit to recording it every single week. And what you're going to notice, and that's what I even giving you more credit for, Richie, is doing the whole freaking thing. You have 30 minutes, and the next one will be even better, and the next one will be even better, and the next one will be even better. And every time you speak it out loud, you start to hear your own words in a different speed, in a different sequence, in a different rhythm, and you're starting to see your own story in a different way. So let's watch a little extra piece. And then we're gonna wrap it up.
I had nothing. Maybe a couple $100,000, 200-300 at best is what I had. And I was scared. I was scared to make the wrong decision. I was scared to take the wrong action. I'm like, what do I do now? All my friends were in college, in Gainesville, in Florida State, somewhere out of state, somewhere in UM, having a good time, partying, doing what a normal 20, 21-year-old kid is doing, getting an education, and I'm here trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I was scared, but I took action. See, going back to my childhood, at 7 years old, my father taught me a beautiful gift. And it was a lesson that I've been able to apply in every part of my life when I've had a difficult moment. And that lesson that he taught me at a young age was around martial arts. I was competing for 5 years, never won a tournament, always lost, got disqualified. One day he gets down on a knee and looks at me and says, "Son, are you tired of losing?" "Of course, Dad." "Then do you want to be a champion?" "Yes, with every part of my being." He goes, "Then I need you to think. I need you to see yourself being a champion. See yourself holding that gold medal. I need you to breathe. I need you to walk. I need you to act. I need you to talk. I need you to embody being a champion." And then came the work ethic. Then came the discipline. Then came, instead of training 3 days a week for an hour each day, that's 3 times, I went to train 7 days a week, 3 hours a day for 7 days a week. Well, when you take work ethic and discipline with the...
All right. I'm gonna stop and give a quick analysis and a quick brain dump. So, Richie, what you could do is in the beginning say, these are the 3 lessons that I learned from my dad that are going to help you to 2x your sales results within a certain amount of time that you feel comfortable with. It was 2002. And then you start the story. And then you start to talk about like the kidnap story. Then it's around minute 6.5. And then now the 3 teaching moments come. And now the beauty starts to get, because the 3 teaching moments are the 3 things that your dad taught you when you were younger. So now there's 3 scenes, 3 moments, 3 stories that will all tie back to one teaching moment that you've learned. And you're setting the scene of emotion with the first story. So now you're time traveling to your youth, where you're sharing your dad's wisdom with you. And I know that you have different moments in your life that you're tuning into. Also, when you traveled to New York and you became like an amazing person there, you graduated again and all those things, those could be a scene. That other one could be a scene, and every single scene is tied to one teaching moment. So now you're cutting up the story where, for example, the opening and the hook is setting the scene with the kidnap story. Then you make a transition where you might say, and you might be wondering, how am I as a salesperson going to gain more leads from this or close more deals? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Not by just telling the strategies that I learned over learning from this, and this, and this, and now you're dropping in your credibility already, but what my dad taught me when I was 7 years old. Grab your pen. And then you say, for example, a quote that your dad said. Work works. Work works. I was doing martial art at the time. And now you're dropping into the story. So now your story becomes a through line for other people to learn through. And now we're watching, okay, what from that story are you going to pick to make the point for that specific scene, to tie back the transition to the aim that you want to reach, to the teaching points that you want to get them through, most ideally 3, because the brain loves the 3. And now the stories become a facilitation in the whole through line. Nevertheless, it's really, really great to put this all out there so you can see it yourself and you can start to see. And this is, by the way, helping me, helping you, because the more I know about your story, the better I can help you as well. That's what I've done with my coaches, which Monica is one of those, regarding my storyline. The more information other people have about your story, the better it can help you pick it as well. Because sometimes it's just really hard for yourself because you are the story. It's like, which part? Credibility, yes, but what? Sometimes I don't even feel I'm credible. It's like, oh wait, vulnerability is already credible. Oh, and then you have all of these, and then in this moment, just in 30 seconds in a row, bum, 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 it's already enough to figure that C out. And sometimes you want to do it in a different way. And that's why we do it through videos and not through just conversations, because then it becomes real. I do want to do a really, really quick round of breakthroughs and ASHs. I trust that you're also going to do this in a video afterwards, but I just want some insights on the lenses that you looked through, or when we were talking about this, what were insights for your own video? Jessica.
I feel like my breakthrough in this was I have been struggling and I was embarrassed because I see that we're now on week 7 and we should have our whole 10-minute story, and I haven't I've still been stuck on like, well, what story, where do I start? And I felt that Richie's story actually really helped me get the clarity of how I'm going to tell my story, because mine is somewhat similar in the sense that it's deep, it's hard, and I was debating whether do I even share this story? Like, is it too emotional? Is it? But you know what? Hearing Richie now showed me, yeah, tell the story, because I was not thinking like, oh, I don't want to hear this or it's too deep. I was moved by it. I was really brought into that story. I was so engaged. I wanted to know more, because obviously if he's on stage and he's talking about this, there's got to be a great story in the end. There's got to be something there, and it just captures your heart. So it kind of gave me more clarity of like seeing that it's okay, because a lot of speakers sometimes, they have something that they're going, and in the beginning, it's like the engagement. I'm like, how do you engage with this, So I found that Richie's story probably helped me the most in getting the clarity of how I'm going to create my story. So I found this to be one of the biggest breakthroughs. So thank you, Richie.
Yes, yes, yes. How cool is that? How cool is that? And how cool is this, knowing that just your story can create the biggest breakthrough? Who is going to say that about you, Jessica? Not someone in this group, but just someone who listens to you on a podcast. Or, this is the power of stories. Imagine if there would be a clear action step afterwards. Like, do you see the potential not only on impact, but also on the monetary side? Do you see the potential not only on the monetary side, but also the impact on an emotional level? This is incredible. So, Richie, you have 2 packs on the backs. Being
Yeah,
both.
I also want to add that I feel like an awakening that came from this is Richie's choice of how to share the story and everything. One is like it brought so much engagement. Like at first, I had seen even Richie's stories with where he's sharing his breakthroughs, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, because like I'm in sales and hearing sales, and I'm like, okay, but you know what? For sales angles, you don't often hear that kind of story, and I felt like it brought in so much that my instant reaction was, I want to hear more. I want to know more about this guy. I'm very curious. So I can see how this would really engage a lot of people to want to know more about you, follow you, hear more, and that's such a great, that's such a great thing that you have. So I think, Richie, you're doing great.
Yes, and there's so many salespeople
Thank you.
out there. What is going to be the differentiator? Is it closing more leads, or is that at some point what everybody's good at? What if it's this? And then knowing your mission, Richie, and then we didn't listen to this yet, so you will all get the link as well if you want to watch the full thing, which I highly recommend. He wants to, or you say it yourself, Richie, and then you share your biggest breakthrough today.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm gonna start with the breakthrough. I think my biggest breakthrough my biggest breakthrough is when I access vulnerability, then I become a space for change. Yeah, and the mission that I'm on is my mission is dropping people from fear from their head and returning them back to their hearts, back to light, back to the universe, back to God, whatever you believe in. That's my mission. And I believe that if I'm able to impact one person or impact 1 billion people's life, then I'm consciously shifting the collective vibration of our life, of our planet, from fear to love. And that's what I'm on.
Yeah. That's what you're doing right now in this room, right here. And this is the beauty. I posted a reel about this the other day. Sometimes we just can be a little bit more creative what a stage looks like. What if it's something that gets repeated? Like, who here knows Noelle? I should see everybody's face because she's always in the Zoom when you come in. You see her face every time. Noelle created the coolest testimonial. So I want to brag with it. What if you can all create a testimonial for Richie here? So you create a stage for yourself and you're supporting someone in the group, right? So now we need to know the aim. So now we can understand where the testimonial is going to lead to. So we can already bust the beliefs that people have potentially want to work with Richie because we believe in this guy. That was beautiful, Richie. And I know it's on time. I just wanted to do it quickly. So if you're having a stop, then you have some time to move on. But I really would love to hear from you, Jamie and Ilse as well. Jamie.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Richie, for sharing so vulnerably. It is something that I aspire to become because I tend to hold vulnerability. Even though I like to say that I'm vulnerable, it's really not my strength. So I really appreciate that and admire that. My breakthrough honestly just came right now as Jessica was talking about how she sees her story, similar to Richie's. And I have this story that I don't have a story, but I actually have a really powerful story of my transformation from being a single mom, like barely making ends meet, to finding like the love of my life and being an entrepreneur and like doing all these things in like 7 years, in 6 years. And I've always been hung up with how that can relate to the health and wellness, but it actually relates in every way because what I teach people is to embody a new identity. And I have embodied a new identity. And so now I know my story and I have my message to share. So thank you.
Wow, isn't this like the coolest ever? Isn't this like the coolest ever? What one story can do. And what if a simple sentence like you might be wondering, what is this to do with health? Well, there's everything to do. And then you continue. Sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes it's just a frame. Wow, wow, wow. And who, by the way, felt chills when she said that? Yes, me too. Like complete full body chills. What I would love is I'm going to share the link of the one-on-ones with all of you in the chat. And if there's an availability before week 7, before next week, I would love all of you to book it then. Okay, so we'll have some time to craft it, then to do week 7 and then to do week 8. And just a little nudge before Nilsa is what I experienced one time. There was a woman, she was doing this whole public speaking academy. She did everything perfect. She was basically having A's all the time. She was great. She did all the stuff, all those things. And then she was listening during week 8 to the other peers, or during week 7. And then she was on the second day and she thought everybody was so vulnerable. I'm not gonna share the one I practiced. I'm gonna do the real one. And she did, and everybody was like, Monica remembers this. It was the most powerful transformation ever, just by being willing to not feel scripted. Yes, the script is important. Yes, the pre-frame is important. Yes, the hook is important. Yes, 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 yes. That's why we went over it and over it and over it. At the same time, what is the most important part of transformational speaking is the highest frequency we can all get is authenticity, and that's a skill. Truly is a skill that you can practice. And the more you are in a high emotion, the more you start to train those 3 amazing minions in your brain that are actually allies on this journey, and that is actually the goal that you want to achieve in the end, which is love. So yeah, epic. Good for you, Jamie. Super cool. You're gonna crush it tomorrow, girl. Oi, oi, oi. Nilsa.
Richie's keynote was very powerful, emotional. And he reminds us of the human condition, because I think everybody has some sort of pain that they hide behind their personalities. And just seeing the way he opened up gave me permission to go into my stories and share ones that I hide behind the numbers, behind the computer. So yeah, it's very powerful. Thank you.
Wow. What a lesson.
And I was told as a child, you don't cry because women that are strong don't cry. So here I am.
So who
Letting it
feels
all
that
out.
Nilsa is really strong right now? Let's help her, Danny Dangers, Lazy Larrys, and have some new evidence. You don't have to totally believe it yet. But what if you could see the possibility that it could be true? What if 5 people now are actually coming from the heart and saying, Nilsa, that was so freaking epic? What if, Nilsa, from this place, you craft your keynote? What if from this place, you're sharing the transformation? And what if from this place, all of you share what's next? Who here would love to impact more people and share some sort of call to action at the end that's either someone else's product or your own? What if that doesn't need to be perfect? What if Richie now says, so who would love what I have to offer? You're like, I don't know what it is, but I want to know. And then he says a fancy name and 3 steps to go there, which are the same 3 steps he taught in his keynote. And then he says, if you truly want to know what's next, then this is it. And then just he shares the it. And that's it. Offers can be duplicated, but you cannot. You are the offer, and you draw people in by being you. And the more you are of you on a stage, the more people will say yes. Especially if it's combined with clarity, and then we start talking about the balance between art and science, winging and scripting, and those beautiful combinations of both worlds. And that just never ends. There's lenses we did not talk about yet, the masculine and the feminine, the sound and the body language, all those things. There's so many. But in the end, it's when you come from here and you know where you're going. And you all know that. So I'm going to drop the link in our WhatsApp from the weekly meeting of the one-on-one session, and would highly advise you all to do it before week 7. So basically next Monday or Tuesday, I'll drop the link in the WhatsApp. So you can book it, so we can go over it. The only requirement, which is really radically important, is you have to create a video that I can see before. Does not have to be perfect, okay? If it's you just opening the lens and say, Lori, I don't know. But if I would know, I would at least think about stories along the lines of these and these and these, and you're just gonna talk for 15 minutes straight. Perfect. Love that. But I need to see something. Otherwise, I cannot help you to the most amazing ability that I have, and let's use the time optimally. Can we agree that we want to use the time as optimally as possible because we're both spending it? So let's make it useful. So that is going to happen. I would love to see a breakthrough and an aha moment from every single one of you in our WhatsApp group, preferably right after class because you're still in momentum. And then last but not least, for the people who would love to go through a little tapping exercise, would love to give the floor to Monica so we can tap it out in a couple of minutes. Monica?
There it is. Let's start with the infinity wave of sending love from our hearts to each other, because this is what you're being modeled by Lori here, is what it's like to be the person. I loved your languaging also, Richie, is that I am a space for change. And part of what you're having modeled for the identity upgrade of being a transformational speaker is that this is what an open heart from Lori looks like, and the space she creates, and the space you guys are creating for each other, and then buckets of hard work. As Lori said, she stood in my living room and worked on that dang Stonehenge story over and over and over and over. Love and hard work, trying, smoothing, polishing, but it's her big heart that's captivating us, and that's what you guys are really learning. And then tapping on the side of the hand. Part of what happens when Richie told his story is that we're all going through our own stories in our head. This is what Lori's taught. When someone else is telling their story, yours is flashing through. And part of what makes speaking so powerful as a transformational speaker is that you're feeling your own emotions. And so whatever's coming up and your own fears of telling your own story, I love what you said, Jessica. It's too emotional, it's too hard, it's too deep, but yet you're moved. What if you are safe, knowing that you can go deep and it can be emotional and it might be hard for the audience, but that's what they need. And that's what they came here for. And that's what they're desperately wanting, is connection with someone who's honest and real and authentic and willing to tell their story, that they can then go find their own place where their transformation occurs. And then tapping on the collarbone points. I love, Richie, that you have this kind of commitment and mission, because that's a space to write your speech from. That's a space to hold the space for your audience for, and knowing it's like, am I willing to go that big? Am I actually willing to say that I am helping people move from fear to love, but I'm at a sales training? Am I willing to know that that's actually what my role is? And whatever fears there are about what people will think about us, that what we're really here for is that we're here to help people move from fear to love. We're here to help people move from their head to their heart. Wow, what if the fear can go away? That's actually, we're all willing to acknowledge it. And then tapping on the stomach points. Because what if these fears show up? Oftentimes people feel the fear in their stomach. And this is one of the best points to work right before you get on stage, right before you film. Oh my God, what if I'm too emotional? What if I make people cry? You know how much money producers and directors spend trying to make people cry in movies? Do you know how hard it is to get people to actually feel something, and how desperate we are to feel something? What if our stomach is safe, knowing that we're here to help people actually go into their hearts and to feel? And then tapping on this big heart of yours. You're here to be transformational speakers. You're here to share your stories, whether they're painful or whether they're funny, or whether they're angry, or whether they're driven, or whether they're passionate. Being safe with any emotion that you speak from yourself and that you create in your audience, that's where they're going to get transformation from. That's where your stories land. And then tapping on the crown, coming from that higher self, that big you, that big soul that you are, with the mission that you came here to have, and then seeing every one of the people, whether on a Zoom screen or on a stage, they are big souls, they have big goals, and you telling your story, you being safe with your emotions, you being safe, being emotional, going deep, letting them be moved, knowing you can actually handle an audience that is all crying, and knowing you actually have the power to do that. That's part of the bigness of you. That's part of the bigness of you, is what you bring out in them. There you go. You are also capable of handling it because you've gone through it yourself. And then tapping on your fingertips, the namaste, the gratitude that we have this kind of opportunity to learn from each other and from Lori about how to be big-hearted and work hard, to be able to craft and polish and think and throw out pieces and take one tiny little bit of a story and make a scene so that people can step in with us, follow us, be the difference maker in what they came. They took their time, they took their money, they took their energy, they sat in that seat to listen to you. Having the gratitude that we get to be able to share with them what transformed us. And they get to take that home with them and spread it out in the world. You are the pebble in the pond, and you ripple and ripple and ripple. And thank you, Lori, for the opportunity to learn how to be able to be this for so many other people. Back to you.
Oh, this transformational speaking, right? I said it in the beginning. It's transformational being. Who feels that they're on a transformational being journey? Yeah, just getting started. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I know it's overtime, so I'm gonna send you all with love into the world. I'm gonna see a breakthrough video from every one of you in the WhatsApp group, and I'd love to see, yes, I will send the one-on-one link, to see the full video that I can see before our one-on-one conversation, so we can all prepare best. Cool? I will send the link in the WhatsApp right after this. All right. See you all next week, you all. Oh, by the way, you're going to get the lineup in WhatsApp as well, so you'll know when you're going to practice and when you have the real reveal. Ciao, ciao.